Thank you very much. That counts as quite a dramatic entrance from my perspective. I really appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here with you this morning. I know that the Leader of the Opposition will be in a few minutes after me, so I was actually hoping I could hang around and stay, because I'm trying to find out what he stands for too. So I'm going to have to count on you to deliver, to ask some questions, and maybe some of you can get back to me with what he told you. I really do believe that election campaigns and government and democratic process is a competition of ideas. And it's really important that we get a chance to debate those ideas. That's what our whole democracy is built on. And so it's harder to have a competition of ideas when there's only one set of ideas competing. But I know that with your help, we'll get there. And people can make their decision about how they would like their province to look 4 years, 8 years, 20 years from now, based on the ideas that we're offering up to move our province forward and build a future for our kids. So we're in an exciting time for our province, and I want to say thank you very much, all of you, for inviting me to be a part of this. Great haircut, Manly. It looks fantastic. He's starting to look respectable. I don't know what happened. Thank you very much. Maybe he's going to go look for a job with the truck loggers or something. I'm not, I don't know. So I do want to start by acknowledging all of you and the work that you do all across the province. I see all of the regions of British Columbia represented here today. And the work that you do, most importantly from my perspective, in weaving together our communities. Because communities are not, you build roads and bridges and schools and all kinds of different infrastructure. And we often think that that is what a community is. That's what represents a community. But what represents a community, what a community consists of, is people. It's people. And it's families and individuals who support each other, neighbors who will help each other out in difficult times. Schools where people volunteer and go to work. That is what binds a community together. And that is really, I think, the work that all of you are very much engaged in, that we don't think about every single day. Because in the course of doing your business, you are making it possible for people to get ahead and to create a future for their families and food on the table for their children, and to be able to create those kinds of cohesive communities that make Canada a great country. So I want to thank you. I want to start by thanking you for that. And of course, implicit in that is the truth of what drives our economy and our province and our country. Because our country is built on great communities, strong communities, and working people. But before you can get there, before you can build the kinds of institutions you want, you need to have a strong economy. And a strong economy is not a growing government. A strong economy is premised on a thriving private sector. And fundamentally, if there is something that binds us together in my party, and we disagree on many things as BC Liberals, there's no question about it. The one thing on which we all agree is that the private sector must thrive if the country is going to thrive. And more than that, if we want the private sector to thrive and grow, government needs to get out of the way and let you grow. Let you do what you do best. And so when we get into that competition of ideas that I talked about, that's what we're going to be talking about. Who believes in a thriving private sector and who understands what it takes to grow the private sector? And why does that matter so much for all of the other institutions and the things that we care about in our province, like healthcare and education? Yesterday I talked about the possibility, and I believe it is a very real possibility, that we can achieve a 10-year deal with teachers in public schools that will mean, if your child is in grade 2 today, by the time they get to grade 12, they will have graduated without losing a single day to job action. That is long overdue in our province. And if there's an investment that we make that's more valuable than any other, it's our investment in our kids in their schools. in making sure that they can have the future that they deserve and that we've worked for them. But they can't have that future or the same kind of future if they are constantly under the threat of job action. And they can't have it if the acrimony at the bargaining table is constantly spilling over into classrooms so that parents and teachers can't even speak to each other anymore. Now, this is an idea and an interesting, I'll give you a little bit of perspective on it, who I think time has come. Because part of the proposal that we've put forward is to say, we want to tie the overall increase for teachers' compensation to the average of the overall increase in the public sector. And on the one hand, you might say, wow, that's going to be really expensive. Well, if it's tied to an average, we'll be able to make sure we can afford it. Teachers, or the teachers' union might say, we'll end up far behind. The real answer to that is this. For the last decade, with all the job action, all the heartache, and all the constant confusion and trouble that job action has created for our kids in schools, the teachers' union hasn't even achieved the average of other public sector increases over the last decade. So we can, over the next 10 years, give teachers a little bit better deal without all the heartache of job action. And how can we afford that? That's the question. How can we afford that? By supporting you in what you do. Because we can only get to a 10-year deal with teachers if we have the money to be able to support it. And we only get the money that we need to support it because you're doing your jobs so well. So over this last year, we have worked hard over the last year and a half. We've worked hard to focus on growing our economy. And last September, Pat Bell and I launched something we called the BC Jobs Plan, focused on 8 sectors of the economy, 3 pillars to it. Go out and find new business for British Columbia, diversify our markets, bring investment to British Columbia, make sure that we are getting out of the way of the private sector so that we can continue to grow and maximize that investment and create jobs, and then create the infrastructure that we need to get those goods to market. Those are the 3 pillars of the jobs plan. And in the first year of the plan, I'm happy to report, we led Canada here in British Columbia in job creation. There are $80 billion worth of projects currently underway in our province. We're moving aggressively to get LNG, liquefied natural gas, online. The first natural gas processing facility on the coast will be up by 2015. The numbers with respect to LNG are so big that I'm trying to find a way to describe it to people outside the construction sector that's believable, because when I say it's $1 trillion in direct economic activity for our province, $1 trillion, and that it will transform our economy, people have trouble grasping exactly what that means. But there are 5, could be up to 8 companies that are building liquefied natural gas plants in our province. And you think about the short-term impact that will have over the construction, then think about the long-term impact that will have in employment on the coast, in the northeast, and spread all across the province in ancillary and support industries for that. Those are great long-term jobs. And then from my perspective, I think about all the revenue for government. When we think about that revenue, because it is a very, very large amount, I think about what could we do with that revenue. Yeah, we could build a lot more hospitals. We spent $7 billion building hospitals in the last 12 years, the biggest investment in hospitals, I think, in Canadian history, certainly in British Columbia history. We could build more schools, and we'll continue to do that. We've made big investments in building schools so far. But what if we decided we want to eliminate the PST or the property purchase tax? What if we wanted to eliminate MSP premiums? What if we wanted to have a 10% minimum, a 10% flat income tax for people all across the province? Those are the opportunities that liquefied natural gas presents for us. The opportunities there, and you think about Alberta and how oil has transformed their province. Well, here in British Columbia, we have the cleanest fossil fuel known on the earth. Moving it is environmentally easy to do, and we have as much of it as they have energy in the oil sands in Alberta. That's the opportunity that's staring us here in the face. If we have a government that decides we want to stay out of the way of the private sector and let the private sector develop those resources. That's the kind of growth we're on the cusp of seeing here in British Columbia, the opportunity that we have. But we have to create the economic conditions to stimulate that growth. So we've worked hard to try and maintain our AAA credit rating, and we have. Despite resource revenues that have dropped pretty significantly, we are still going to balance our provincial budget. We are controlling government spending at a rate not seen in our province since 2004, 2005. We're doing that because we know that we cannot spend out of control, fail to balance our budget, and at the same time maintain our AAA credit rating and attract investment to our province. It's a pretty simple equation for anybody in the business world. And being able to attract that investment is crucial for us. When you look around the world and you see jurisdictions that are failing, and you don't have to look very far to see that. What you see is jurisdictions that have lost control of spending, that cannot balance their budgets, and that are seeing they can't attract investment from around the world anymore. In Canada, there are 3 provinces that really are have provinces: British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Alberta and British Columbia are really the 2 big contributors to our country right now. And when I think about this, when I talk to the Prime Minister about it, I often say, you know what? You need British Columbia. And you need a free enterprise, British Columbia. Because we, in many ways, are leading this country and keeping it afloat financially as part of our duty as Canadians. But more than that, though, we have a chance to really lead Canada for the first time, to start punching above our weight in Confederation. To be the province that everybody looks to and says, wow, how did they do that? I remember a time when you would go traveling, and in the 1990s, and you'd meet someone from Alberta or Ontario, and you'd say, I'm from British Columbia. They'd go, oh, man, I feel sorry for you. Because that was a time when other economies were booming all across North America, and we were falling behind. But if we make the right investments, and if we keep our eye on the ball, we can make sure we continue to grow our economy. So investments like the ones that we've done, that you've seen in the last year and a half, like at Royal Columbian Hospital redevelopment, Vancouver General Mental Health Facility, which is a much needed support for people with mental health issues all across the province, the $650 million North Islands Hospital project. Go to Campbell River. A man there, a 70-year-old man there, said he had never seen so many people in Campbell River working. Between the John Hart Dam and the hospital project, everybody there who wants a job can have one. The Burns Lake Hospital replacement, the Royal Inland Hospital replacement. All of these have gotten going in the last year and a half, and we are not going to stop. We have the capacity to do this because our economy is strong, and we have the will to do it because we know that it needs to be done for the future of our province. More than $22 billion has been committed to the largest infrastructure program in Canadian history, and that's the Pacific Gateway project. That was done in the last 10 years as well. All of these things, the Trans-Canada Highway widening between Kamloops and Alberta. So I dispute those Albertans who say we don't care about them. We want them to come. That's why we're widening the highway. And we know that our highway here is an essential artery for Canada. The busiest port in the country is in Vancouver and Delta. That's the biggest port in the country. And all of the goods from across Canada have to travel through British Columbia to find their way to the fastest growing middle class in history over in India and China. That's our duty as Canadians, to build that infrastructure. And the happy consequence of that is that it also puts a lot of British Columbians to work. But I know that you need to make sure that we are continuing to grow opportunities in our province, that we continue to be committed to building our province, investing in infrastructure, and that we do it in a way that works for you, for businesses large and small. So we are going to establish, and we have established, with the help of your association, a 14-member group to share all the information and ideas on government procurement. I've heard you. You want to make sure that the way we do procurement works for you, and works for people in British Columbia. And so we are going to establish a durable partnership with the construction sector here to make sure that we can build our procurement, tweak any areas of our procurement policy to make sure that they're working for you. That's something you've been asking for. It's something that Manly has been asking for and working incredibly hard at on all of your behalf and all of you here, and we are absolutely prepared to do it with you. Having been in the private sector and the public sector, I know in my heart that it is the private sector that knows how to build infrastructure. It's the private sector that understands how to attract investment. And for heaven's sakes, we need to lean on you to get your expertise to make sure that we're doing this properly. There are going to be about 18,000 new construction jobs in the next decade. Trade with Asia is increasing. And we have to make sure that while we are opening up more opportunities for our resources to move to Asia, while we are building the infrastructure and doing that procurement and investment that's required, that we have people to fill those jobs. And I believe we should make sure that it's our kids who are first in line, British Columbians who are first in line to get those jobs. And that's the third leg of the stool, is making sure that we're investing in skills training. We've put a real focus in this last year on a plan to make sure that we are reorienting our education resources so that we're better focused on the trades. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the famous TED Talk that Sir Ken Robinson did. I downloaded it again the other night. 14 million people have seen this. And in it, he talks about how our education system is really, really designed to try and make sure that kids can get into university, which is great. It's great for kids to go to university. But not every child is destined for that. And we need to build an education system that doesn't just value going to university, that doesn't just hold as its highest value someone getting a PhD in physics or mathematics. That's important. But it leaves out a lot of people who are talented at a lot of things. And it means that we really don't recognize and allow people to fulfill the full range of talents that are out there. We need to reorient our education system so that young people are attracted and focusing on the trades. Invest in school counselors and school programming at the secondary level so that young people, through personalized learning, can design an education system that works for them. So if they're not going to go get a PhD in physics, maybe they're a kinesthetic learner. Maybe they're good at doing things with their hands. We need to show kids in school that we value that and encourage them to follow that as a route for the rest of their lives. And my firm belief is that those 20% of kids who don't graduate from high school and those 50% of Aboriginal kids who don't graduate from high school are largely composed of young people who go to the school system and say, there's nothing there for me. We need to build that into our system so that we can make sure that those kids are staying in school, for one thing, but that we're producing graduates who are going to be there to take advantage of the opportunities that you're creating. We need to cut trade completion times for trades training in half. Invest in the most modern equipment possible so that young people, when they're getting their trades training, whether it's at secondary or post-secondary institutions, are learning on machines and equipment that they're going to actually use when they get out into the private sector, so that you don't have to start training them all over again. Those are the kinds of initiatives that we have to be pursuing here in British Columbia and that we are pursuing through our trades training plan right now. Many of those ideas, you should know, came from you, from the BC Construction Association, and the work that you've done in constantly pushing government to make sure that we are getting our young people ready to take on those trades jobs. The other thing we have to do is make sure that that training is available close to home. And so if you grew up in Campbell River, or if you grew up in Williams Lake, or Fort St. John, or Prince Rupert, that you can get an education close to home in an area where you're likely to get a job. So first, matching the training to the jobs that are available, but then second, locating it in the community where those jobs are likely to be available. Because you know this, when your kids decide to leave your hometown and go to Vancouver to get training, their odds of coming back are smaller. And you know that you're going to end up probably buying a house in Burnaby so you can visit your grandchildren. For many of you, that's not the future you want. You want your kids, if you grew up in Williams Lake, if that's where you raised them, you want them to stay there and raise their kids there. And I know this, that's what those kids want too. That's the approach that we're taking to trades training across the province. We want to match people to jobs. And so we've been working with the Construction Association to deliver the Job Match program. And as you know, you may know, as of December 31st, it's been a huge success. 157 participants have registered in the Job Match program. And that's part of our program to make sure that we are letting young people know about the opportunities out there. I've taken a lot of criticism about the government advertising that we've been getting out there. And I make no apology for that. Because first of all, British Columbians need to know and have the confidence that our economy is doing well. But second, we do need to make sure that they know about the opportunities that are out there. So, for example, the opposition has said they don't like the job fairs that we've been doing. Well, there are job fairs that are traveling the province where people have been offered jobs on the spot, where employers have instantly found the workforce that they need. That's government's job, to try and help connect people. We want to grow the economy. You can't grow the economy without workers. We want to make sure that young people have the opportunities that they're looking for. They can't do that unless they connect with you. Government has a legitimate role in trying to connect people together, employers and employees. And I make no apology for that. Since we started running the government ads on skills training, the number of people that have been visiting our jobs website looking for jobs has gone up by 300%. That's the kind of work that you need from your government. Not just telling people how good it is out there, it is good, but making sure that people can take advantage of those opportunities when they come up. So last, I'll say this. In 2001, we turned the page on some very difficult times for our province. We turned the page firmly and fully, and we stuck with it. And we have a plan to continue to grow this economy, and the plan is working because we've stuck with it. We've had a plan to stay disciplined about taxes, the lowest personal income taxes in Canada, the lowest combined federal income taxes, or corporate income taxes when you combine them federally, in North America. 37% drop in personal income taxes since 2001, 40% drop in corporate income taxes since 2001. That's good for British Columbia because it puts people to work and it grows our economy. We've seen more people working in places like Prince George and Campbell River than ever in the history of those communities, and we need to keep it up. We turned the page, and we have an opportunity to keep turning the page on another chapter for our province. The opportunities out there are huge, and we can't forget that we, as a generation, have a duty to our kids, because that's why we all do it, because we want our kids to have a better future than we did. Their future is in our hands, and that's what the debate will be about for the next 4 months, what we want that future to look like. And I hope that 5 months from now, maybe next year, Manly, when you invite me back, I'll be able to say to you again, thank you for the work that we are doing together to make this the kind of province our kids deserve to have. Thank you very much.